going back many years. They're very strategic. They're very insightful. I always find they have nuggets to offer to others. And my experience in working with them is that they're just really pleasant people to work with and are always willing to share some ideas. So I'm offering up their services in a way. But if you have further questions and you didn't get a full answer to your question, Brett and Chris are great guys and really willing to dig into some conversation if you'd like to. So, and offering you guys up. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. So next we're going to welcome to the stage Brazil IT's Robert Janssen. Robert is a senior advisor from Brazil IT. He provides strategic guidance on multi-sourcing strategies for several international organizations who are seeking to establish a footprint in India, South America, and South Africa. He's been a speaker here before, and he's done fantastic work for us. So thank you, and Robert, please welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, I was challenged a few months back to write something about women executives. I said, wow, I never had been that challenged before, so I set out to work to do so. And this was by a women's executive magazine in Brazil, in Florianópolis. And I said, okay. So I ended up writing something that had a title where I said, the world is getting pinker, and that's good. And it's good from a very exact standpoint that women bring a different perspective for us, which is a collaboration perspective, which I think is within their own nature. But today I'm being challenged even further, because if you look at your program, I'm not Virginia Duarte. I am Robert Janssen. Virginia Duarte is my colleague who was supposed to be here and cannot come. And when Virginia was doing this presentation, which I'm going to show to you today, we actually discussed a little bit about it. And what we wanted to show you, taking the lead from Forrester of the sourcing of a business outcome for tomorrow, we were looking what was that for Brazil would make relevance to you for a successful business outcome. And we saw that a lot of people have very little information on Brazil. So we needed to provide you that. We need to provide you a better insight on what Brazil is all about. So how many of you have been to Brazil? Okay. Chris, have you been to Rio already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You've been to Brazil. How about you?
São Paulo.
You have to go back. If you haven't gone to Rio, you have to go back. Anyways, when we looked at that, we saw that there's a good statistical data we could provide you, so you can have a better sense of what Brazil's offer, and what Brazil's value proposition is. And the other thing also is that there's a cultural alignment. Brazil has a very unique cultural background, and we saw that's also a very key element for a successful business outcome. So let me start first explaining what is Brazil IT. A lot of people confuse that, and they think it's a company, and it is not. Brazil IT is just a brand name. It's a corporate identity for showcasing the best of breed Brazilian IT companies. And I want to immediately acknowledge the 4 companies that are here today and invite you to engage with them. We have Stefanini, we have eCore Technologies, we have CINT, and Sintel. And by the way, they are all American corporations doing business regularly as you normally do here. Well, Brazil IT is a corporate identity for a program run by 3 different institutions. The first logo you see there, Brascom. That's one of the top industry associations in Brazil. It harnesses all the big boys under IT Services and Communication Association. The second logo is Softex, which is the big slide, a nonprofit organization. It aims at excellence in software and solutions. And the third is Apex Brazil. Apex Brazil is the export and investment promotion agency for the federal government. So since Apex is cross-industry, they're involved with shoes, lingerie, agricultural machinery, airplanes, all tangibles. So they saw that for intangibles, it would be better to pass the buck to people who understand about the business. So they brought in Softex and Brascom to manage the Brazil IT program. Okay? So moving forward, let's see what our agenda is today. So we want to talk about a little bit in the software market and show our DNA there, the IT services market, the challenges and the opportunities, and end up with what are the cultural elements that we see are key for you to be successful down there. So Brazil is today the 6th largest economy in the world, $2.5 trillion. There's another slide that we commonly use, and we try to bring this type of information into a snapshot of 3 combined criteria. So if we were to combine land mass over 4 million square kilometers, if we were to combine into that same figure a population size of over 200 million, and also a size of GDP above $2 trillion, guess how many countries match those criteria in one single snapshot? I'll repeat, $2 trillion, 2 million population size, and over 4 million square kilometers. US, China, and Brazil. Okay, so how does the Brazilian ICT sector look? Well, what you see there is kind of evened out a little bit. IT services is about 27.2 billion, representing 18%. We do have a very strong telecom sector, which still is the largest portion of that. But if we bring that into a total pie, you see that today, the ICT sector in Brazil is already 3.5% of the global ICT market. Well, guess what? How interesting. Over GDP is pretty much equivalent as well, 3.6. So the Brazilian software market is very IP-based. Brazil was born inwards. I don't know if very few people realize, how many of you have flown American Eagle recently? One in the back, 2, 3. So guess what? You've flown Brazilian aircraft. That's Embraer. And very few people realize that. So Brazil has over 50 different economic sectors and a very strong domestic market. And that's how the solutions and the software market in Brazil were grown. They were grown inside to address the needs of that particular market. And now recently, as we see happening all over the world, the demand of creating a different type of engagement model where you work as a service, on demand, you pay per use, which is software as a service. If you look at the licensing model, which still is very prevalent, it's about $9.3 billion. You have over 1,000 companies with 20 plus employees involved in that. And then applications is still about 0.5% of that. And most companies are focused in 3 key things. When you go to Brazil, you see them actively seeing the market in 3 dimensions. They have a dimension of the size of the account, they have a dimension of the vertical in which I'm involved in, and they have a dimension in which region. One key thing is good to observe, and it's the difference between US and Brazil. Although Brazil, without Alaska, is larger in land mass than US, so pretty much the same size countries. Here, you can be in Toledo, Ohio, and you can be doing business on a daily basis without ever leaving Toledo across the nation. In Brazil, if you want to do business nationwide, you definitely got to be in São Paulo. And you don't translate going wide business as you do in the US as you do in Brazil. So you have to have places in every single region. I can't be in Toledo, Ohio, calling on my clients wherever I want. If I want to do business in Recife, I better have an office there. If I want to do business in Porto Alegre, I should have an office there too. So this is a difference between where here in the US people are accustomed to, they'll open their headquarters in one single place. It can be in Portland, Oregon, and operate from there nicely. Well, in Brazil, if you want to operate nationwide, you're going to have locations in different places. Well, one thing that speaks very well for this diversified economy that Brazil has, the ERP space is very big. SAP and Oracle, they thrive very much there, especially at the top tier when they talk about the Fortune 500 companies. SAP and Oracle dominate there, and only the one Brazilian company locally has been able to match it, which is TOTUS. As a matter of fact, TOTUS started really focusing in the mid-market section where SAP and Oracle were not so prevalent. And now you see SAP and Oracle going down into the middle market as well, because they don't have that market. Talks dominates it. And when you go down to the SMBs, what do you have? You have a no presence of foreign or multinational companies. Let me tell you an interesting story about SAP. SAP has a product focused on the retail business. And it's actually to map in real time what's being sold on the front line, on the point of sale, and then informs distribution centers, which informs manufacturing, so they can replace that. So it's a total retail product. So a few years back, a bank in Brazil bought it. And everyone was, wow, a bank, Banco Itaú, our largest bank, bought a retail product, retail solution from SAP. And basically what they were doing was, well, let me take the monies I have to distribute to the ATMs and to the branches. And that solution fit very well for what they wanted and needed. Well, the guy the systems analyst who was actually implementing this solution back at Itaú in São Paulo ran into a configuration problem. So he had to call the help desk. And the help desk is in Germany. So he calls the help desk for the solution. And he picks up the phone and talks, listen, I am here from Brazil. We purchased your solution recently, and I have a config problem. Can you help me? And the German guy on the other line said, yes. Okay, which industry are you in? So I'm from the banking industry. I'm a bank. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We don't make a solution for banks. And I know. So again, he said, wow. Okay, let me call the financial help desk in Germany. So he did that. He called the financial help desk in Germany. And, okay, sir, you're a bank. Okay, which solution, which financial solution do you buy? So he mentioned the name of the solution, which is for retail. I'm sorry, sir, that's not for finance, that's for retail. Today, SAP has this solution as one of the most sold in the financial industry in Brazil. So the ERP space it speaks very loud for the diversification of our economy. It speaks for governance, it speaks for management across the board. So if you look at the verticals that are very prevalent and intensive in using IT, banking is a given. In the high inflation area in Brazil, the banks invested heavily into technology so we can stay ahead of the spread. Today, the financial industry, the financial IT services in Brazil is top 3 worldwide. But then you have banking, you have public sector, you have retail, wholesale, others, utilities. It's prevalent all over the board. This slide here, Virginia wanted us to actually look at some of the top verticals and give you some more detailed information. It's not very easy to read. This information is going to be available for all of you. Bridget O'Malley already has it. So I'm going to jump this slide since we can't read it very well. Services market. Does anyone know when IBM set its first subsidiary outside the United States? No? Anyone want to take a guess? Well, you know, because you heard me, Joseph. You can't say that. Oh, let Chris say it.
That was early 1900, or early 20th century, excuse me.
1929. And guess where? Of course, Brazil. Brazil was the first subsidiary outside U.S. for IBM. And today, most multinational you can think of has been on the ground in Brazil for at least 50 years. So this is a very good parameter for us because it shows what we have already embedded in our culture, some of the most prolific business practices that we are accustomed to in the United States. But legacy systems, of course, you know, when you talk about IBMers, you have a big crowd down there. You see, Brazil, technologically speaking, we have the largest mainframe installed base outside U.S. worldwide. And we also have the largest community outside U.S. worldwide. So from a technological standpoint, we go from mainframe all the way down to open source. One of the key things in the IT services that really thrushes is like a turbocharge for the industry is first the large projects hired by the most mature companies. They need to have outside support to actually supplement these large projects. Sometimes they also have the need for adding functionalities for solutions that are already ready-made that you come. And also when you have new technologies and they're still somewhat immature in the maturity process, and they need outside help with that specific technological expertise. Looking at the IT services, we're still about almost half of the market is ran by Brazilian companies, but you see there's an even spread among the foreigners that are there. So the Americans, the Indians, the Europeans, and Latin Americans all over the place. But look at Brazilian companies like Stefanini, who is here, CINT, who is here, eCore Technologies, and Sintel, and plus others like BRQ, Braxis has been bought by Capgemini, Polytech has been bought by Hendra. Challenges and opportunities. What did my friend Virginia want to show you here? That first, some of our strengths is actually in applications. Why? That's where our DNA, our genes were born from. Trying to address the needs of our local market, trying to address the needs of a very diversified economy that needed to have applications that were custom made to their particular needs, to their particular market dynamics. We are also a large and growing domestic market, like the slide we showed before, the 6th economy in the world, so that makes it for a great opportunity. Now, when we had the financial hiccup in 2008, 2009, I heard many salespeople saying, Robert, I need your help. And so what's up? Well, guess what? My director did not go on the fact that I needed to revise my numbers. He said, I'm going to keep your numbers where they're at, and you just go find new geographies. He said, I'm going to go to your geography, go to Brazil. We have a very good infrastructure locally, and we have a very good talent pool. Our labor there is very, very high level. There's universities across the board, across the nation. So today you don't only see São Paulo, you have Recife, you have Rio Grande do Sul. And the adaptability and the cultural compatibility is something that I'll address here in a little bit, which has to do with how also the cultural elements have an impact on what is a business outcome. The opportunities, like I mentioned to my friends in sales, this is a new geography. It is where people are totally in need of upgrading, of understanding where they can be more competitive. Competitiveness is something that the Brazilian culture is learning how to manage, because now we're a global player and we're competing with players around the world. And we need also to attract more foreign capital and foreign players. Brazil recently opened in the last 20 years. Before that, it was a very closed market. Now, the challenge is to establish our value proposition. And our value proposition is one in which we like to say that it's focused on problem solving. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here for some problem that we have back home or back in the office that we're trying to resolve. And it may not be an immediate problem, but it's something that I'm right now surveying, researching, checking who can actually step up to the plate. And this takes me to an event I participated in India a few years back, and something that impressed me very much from a CIO of a large IT services company here in the US, one of the top 5. And the CIO was not Chief Information Officer. It was Chief Innovation Officer. And he said, you know, going forward, there's going to be 2 key drivers for vendors to focus on. And one is customer intimacy. And by customer intimacy, I do not mean that I know the CEO's wife's birthday and I'm going to send her flowers and birthday card. It means I know more about my client's business than he actually does. And that will lead to the second one, which is thought leadership. I'll be able to innovate. I'll be able to anticipate what can help these companies become more competitive. So here goes to the slide where our challenge is to also position ourselves as a strategic player. At the end of the day, most companies don't want a vendor. They want a strategic partner who can really understand its business and help them to stay competitive, stay ahead of the pack. So, in that sense, Virginia wanted me to message this to you that, okay, Brazil is a very dynamic, one of the most dynamic currently, with a strong domestic demand, very open now as it wasn't before. Like, you know, we have the Christ Redeemer now as one of the 7th marvels of the world, so there it is. And we're very sophisticated, demanding customers. Having received with all those multinationals that have been on the ground for years and years, of course, that we have also embedded that into our own culture. And we are creating a very great digital society. Brazil has been one of those type of nationalities that has been always an early adopter of technology. So I wanted to thank Virginia for this. These are her slides. This is a message she wanted to give to you. And then we added some from the cultural element. And the reason we bring this issue, cultural matters, is because it does have an impact. And it's constantly overlooked. And I find myself in a quite unique position to speak about this. And if anyone was here last year, bear with me because I'm going to have to be repetitive. Christine and other people from Forrester, Chris, I could not be in another space than being on international cross-border business development. Why? Well, I was made in Japan. I was born U.S. First language I spoke was French, and I was raised in Brazil. Grandparents on the father's side, Dutch and German. Grandparents on the mother's side, Swiss and Portuguese. Last time I checked, talking to a girl on a plane to Taipei on New Year's Eve, I said I was an earthling. So the way we see the world today, you know, everyone, and I'm sure you guys can track back your cultural heritage and be something like it as well. Well, in Brazil, it's quite unique though, because we're, okay, technically speaking, I got two passports, American and Brazilian. And I often hear us as Americans that we are a melting pot. And I kind of disagree a little bit with that. Because, yes, we do have a very diverse immigration influence, but we're kind of siloed still in the U.S. Not in Brazil. Brazil is all put into a blender and created this very unique culture where there's no cultural element coming into the decision process making. But it creates also its own dynamics and its own dimension. So let me go run this by you real fast. I'm trying to do here just a comparison chart between Brazil, U.S., so you can understand better these cultural differences and be successful when you go to Brazil or when you engage with a Brazilian vendor, or meaning a Brazilian strategic partner. So family is important same way it is here, it is there. The difference though is here, the way that the U.S. was built, was colonized, already automatically built into the social DNA, family values, religion, work, because that's how the Huguenots flown from England over here, or flown. They actually didn't swim, but they did come on a boat. In Brazil, we had a very extractivist colonization by the Portuguese, so the family DNA was not automatically put there. But today, it's very important. Work is also very important, but you'll see that we will say that some societies, and I'm not saying here, they live to work. In Brazil, we work to live. We're very hard workers, but we'll also appreciate our free time. Education is seen as a very important step. So although some people take it that I don't want to be perceived as a geek or a diehard or a workaholic, right? But still, very hard-working people. Religion, Brazil is the largest Catholic country in the world today. But because of that, doesn't mean that necessarily we only appreciate that single religion. You'll find most religions there present as well, very diversified. And fun, is part of, who hasn't watched some of the images of Carnival, for instance, from Brazil. And that's part of Carnival. You can literally think 5 days. Don't think about doing business out there because people will be having being on their phone. Business maturity. You'll see there's still, I say that we're maturing very rapidly. We're very almost on par with the U.S., but the U.S. is still much better trained. We are flexible in Brazil, where in the United States we're flexible too, but also have a process orientation. And Brazil is very optimistic. I say that even this slide here is kind of halfway, because it's not just half full glass. Sometimes it's full. Halfway we're looking, halfway we're there. It's all a matter of perception. Very hard worker, as long as it doesn't interfere with the weekend, here goes back to the fun element, react very quickly to unexpected situations. This is a very key element which goes into problem solving. Why? Again, being colonized by extractivist type of mindset as we were by Portugal, had the Brazilians try to find different ways of getting things done. Because at the end of the day, I need to get things done to survive. And also, the most recent history, if you look in 1987 to 1994, we had 7 different economic plans. So the Brazilian society became accustomed to reacting quickly to hostile and changing environments. It was a must. I need to survive. I remember deployment teams, when we had monetary correction and changing the currency, of IT teams going into the banks on the weekend, because the next Monday, a new monetary system would be in place. And it was just like a total crash at Blitzkrieg. One thing that we see here, Brazilian people sometimes are very open and immediately open. They'll embrace you automatically, whereas here in the States, we will do that as well, but we will work our way or ramp up our way to that, not automatically as Brazilian people do. So if we were to look at something that we want to leave you with as far as takeaways, business in Brazil is about people. We're just discussing with Bruno from CINT, who's here, that, you know, in Brazil, you first do business face-to-face. And then you engage on following up on that business later on a phone, virtual, Skype, whatever. But if you don't establish that first trust and they know who you are, they will look for someone else that they know to do business with, rather. Okay, time for relationship building is a must, and don't think you're going to do expat-only management, that will not work. And sometimes the flexibility will call for you to be more accommodative, to accommodate a little better, and not be constantly, all the time, every time, by the book. You know, that's very important, but also sometimes a little bit of flexibility to accommodate will get you a better result. Because at the end, it's business outcome. It's not just going literally by what it says in the manual. The ability to adapt is seen as a very high, key, professional feature. You know, we recognize that in part because it's part of our DNA. So we like to see that in our type of relationships, that we have an adaptive type of possibility. One of the Brazilian way, the Brazilians are very proud. How many people here thought that Brazil spoke Spanish? It doesn't anymore, right? Yeah, but you know, I still see people doing that. Well, this is another thing too. How many people think Brazilians are Hispanic? And Brazilian people do not consider themselves Hispanics. Although we're in a Latin country, we consider ourselves Brazilian. Totally different from any other Hispanic culture, be it Mexican, be it Chilean, be it Argentine, or be it Spaniard. So when talking about culture, there's no right or wrong. There's just, you know, different dynamics. And they're different positive dynamics. And if you learn to work with them, they'll be always in your favor. Brazil is not US or UK. It goes to what I just said, it's just Brazil. You want to invest and build a strong management layer when you're doing business there. And language support to the rest of the organization is key. Communication is where you have to really focus. And sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So if you focus on establishing those communication bridges, those management layers, you will be successful. And I'd like to finish here, but I still got 3 minutes, and I'll tell a story that I have told many times over. And I'm sorry if some people are going to hear it again, but I think it actually captures the essence of what Brazilian value proposition is. So I'm going to ask the audience, and please engage with me. How many of you like pizza? I don't see a raise of hands. So if you like pizza the way I do, I like it very thin and crusty. And because I'm half American, half Brazilian, I am shuttling between San Francisco and Rio almost every other 45 days. So when I go to San Francisco, I stop at this this pizza place called North Beach Pizza. And it's owned by a Greek guy called John. And the other day I was there, and he had his smile pierced to his ear. And he doesn't have it pierced, but his smile was way up here. And I said, John, why are you so smiling? He said, you know, Robert, I'm very happy today. I beat those guys to the punch. I said, what do you mean? Who do you beat? No, I beat Pizza Hut and Domino's Pizza. How come? What'd you do? Well, I delivered a more amount of pizzas in one single day to the entire Bay Area than they did. I said, come on, John, get out of here. How can you do that? You know, it's impossible. Those guys are a franchise. They have units all over the Bay Area. You're just a single door. He says, Robert,